Going back in time, if somebody had told me when I was part of the dive team that I would ever be doing that sort of work, I would have told them they were crazy. I had an intense fear of water when I was growing up. Not that it was intentional, but I had the thought that my sister tried to drown me in Okanagan Lake one time, and she pushed me in, and I was not a non-swimmer, so I had a morbid fear of water. Really, no, I don't like the water. I recall in the academy, part of the training aspects that we had to have a certain number of hours in the swimming pool. I wasn't a swimmer. When we first went into the academy, I wasn't a swimmer. I couldn't swim. They said, you will swim. That's it. And you had to have swimming certifications when you left the academy. Partway through our training, one of our troop mates died in the pool due to a short in the underwater lights, and he was electrocuted, so he died. That kind of cast a lot of dispersions on whether I wanted to become a police officer because I couldn't swim. Long and short of it, we swam and we got pushed, and we had to do free diving recoveries of weighted objects from the deep end of the pool in 14 feet. And I hated diving so much, or swimming so much, that there were several days I was perfectly content to go to the bottom of the 14-foot pool, grab onto the heavy weight there and stay, not come back. Fortunately, I changed my attitude and I graduated with 2 swimming awards. I met a fellow who was a diver and had diving equipment for sale, and I figured, I'd just go and buy it. Shortly thereafter, I took a diving course and found it was kind of fun. So I started doing non-formal police diving, recovery of vehicles, body recovery, searches, and such like that. And in 1977, the RCMP formed an official underwater recovery team, at which time I applied for membership. I was selected to go into the underwater recovery team training. And in April 1977, I became a member of the full-time or the part-time underwater recovery team for the RCMP in British Columbia. First and foremost, it was conducting dive operations to the recovery of deceased persons, evidence, submerged vehicles, aircraft. We were tasked with security, water security, underwater security for explosive devices, penetration, terrorist attacks, and water security overall, whether it be hostage taking of a vessel or terrorist activities taking over a vessel. We'd have to take the vessel down with Marine Services and emergency response guys, so we were the backups to them. You're always going into a hazardous environment. And I reflect back with all over the years, I said, thinking that if God had meant us to go underwater, He would have provided us with gills. But the diving that I did prior to the team being formed, I went in places and did things, and it was exciting. It was a real challenge to go and look for the body or look for the vehicle or whatever the case may be in an already hazardous environment, but you never thought about that. It's the excitement of going to find something, recover a body or recover some evidence. Your life was at stake every time you put your head underwater. A lot of inherent risks, depending on the type of water you're diving in. When you're diving in current with zero visibility to an unknown depth, it's a challenge. It's scary. We've had a lot of guys that have just backed off and said, I'm not doing this because of the fear, because of the danger, because of the hazards. It's still unbelievable to a lot of individuals that a police person could do that sort of stuff. The darkest and worst experience that I can remember, say the recovery of one of our fellow officers. It was up in the Sunshine Coast. She had been out cycling, mountain biking with her with her boyfriend, and they're up in a logging road, and there was a wooden log bridge over a raging creek, and of course the bike as they were going over there, her bike tire got caught in the bridge between the logs, and she got tossed over into the creek. She got flushed down the creek and got pinned under a large rock. Her face was still above water. The boyfriend went in to try to save her. The water current had pinned her under the rock, and he couldn't get her out. And she was still alive, conscious, and trying to extricate herself. Long and short, with the violence of the water, it was going over her head, and she was taking a lot of water. He was faced with having to go and get help for her. As it was, he had to leave her because he couldn't get her out. They came back later, and she had succumbed to the water, glacial water, freezing cold, and she drowned. The call came in for us. It was later in the afternoon to muster a team to get up to sea-shelled area to do the body recovery. As it was, none of our guys were available to get together, so we went up the following morning and got on site, located the body, got her out. Of course, unfortunately, she was dead. That was just the beginning of it. Of course, her home wasn't in BC, it was in the prairies. So of course her family came out. We kind of had to shoulder the load of the fact that her parents didn't understand the logistics of getting up to the site to initiate her recovery. Of course, they wanted her alive, but it was a foregone conclusion she was going to be dead. So we did get her body out. The parents lodged a complaint against our people for not being there in time to recover her while she was alive. They took so long. It was a very gut-wrenching situation when we had a sit-down with her folks. And my partner, as a matter of fact, he was so depressed, upset with it, he was in tears, as were her folks, about the recovery of the body. And not enough can be said when you're recovering your own. It's bad enough you have a civilian, whether it be a child, whether it be an adult, you deal with the next of kin. But when it's one of your own, it doesn't make it worse. It just makes it a little more heart-wrenching to deal with. There were a variety of members on the team, but we became a big family. You had the special guys and gals on the Lower Mainland team that I kind of did most of my time with. There was two individuals that really became like brothers. One in particular was a fellow named of Bob Tether. Robert Gordon Tether was his name. Bob was we called him the godfather of the underwater recovery team. Just a remarkable individual, absolutely remarkable individual. Bob trained the majority of all our divers on the original induction course for the underwater recovery team. And Bob became a very, very close personal friend. The most outstanding thing about Bob was the type of individual that he was. He led by example. He was just an individual that you can't say enough words about it. I think the most remarkable thing about Bob is the fact that he would put his life on the line in danger for the job, whether it be underwater or whether it be on land. And the thing that's most remarkable about Bob was the fact that he was the 5th living recipient of the Canadian Cross of Valor, which is the highest civilian award that can be awarded for the act of bravery. Early one morning, Bob received a call to respond to an overturned capsized fishing vessel in the Fraser River just off the mouth of Steveston. Bob and another dive team member responded to the site as the Coast Guard had already been on site and had checked the vessel out and had talked to two people in the overturned vessel. So Bob was called out. They arrived on site, established the fact that the two individuals were still alive in the overturned vessel. Because of the environment, the hazard, Bob decided to do the dive himself, totally untethered, which meant he was free diving. In the darkness, the boat was floating in about 600 feet of water, bobbing on being held up with an air bubble inside the vehicle, inside the vessel. Bob penetrated the vessel, and of course everything was upside down, so the disorientation was just unbelievable. He found the skipper and his mate in the engine room of the vessel. He popped up inside the engine room, much to their surprise, and told them he was taking them out of the vessel. The skipper pushed forward the mate to said, "Here, you go first." So Bob gave him a quick down and dirty lesson on diving, put the regulator in his mouth and don't stop breathing. Bob, being a very, very slight individual, had this young fella climb onto his back and hold on as Bob swam out of the vessel and brought him out to the surface. When they were getting in the galley of the vessel, the young fellow panicked and reached down and ripped Bob's mask off his face, and Bob had to go into survival panic mode to stop the movement of this individual while he readjusted the mask, put it back on, calmed him down, and eventually brought him right out of the vessel. He went back down, got the skipper, did the same thing with the skipper, a little bit more collected, and brought the skipper out of the vessel. When Bob got to the surface, he asked for a bucket, and everybody said, "What do you want a bucket for?" And he says, "They have a dog in the engine room, and I want to go get him." And Bob was going to take the bucket, get down to the engine room, fill the bucket with air, put the dog in the bucket, and bring him to the surface. Anyways, he was convinced not to go back in, and so Bob came back in. But that just kind of demonstrates the type of person that Bob was. He wasn't going to leave the dog in the vessel to die. Long and short of it, happy part of the story, the boat was towed into Steveston, flipped over, and the first thing that happened was the dog ran out of the boat and was alive. But Bob, as I say, that just demonstrates how near and dear a person he was, that he would do that. It was a rewarding career, along with the other duties that I had. I learned lots. I was trained to the highest levels. I traveled a lot, met a lot of people, from officers from all over the United States of America, worked with different officers in training situations. It was a fulfilling career, and I have no regrets when I look back over it all. What I like about teaching, I find it gives me the opportunity to teach young kids, I may say, about the real true life of the life of law enforcement or public safety. I can relate hands-on experience, what it feels like to do the job. And it's not coming from a book, it's coming from the heart and the mind and actual operational stuff. And just the interaction with and the interest with the students that come in, that want to know about it, want to get involved in it. And I tried to convince them the best that it's an awful job. Without law enforcement, public safety, the people would have nobody. So you want to share your abilities, you want to share your knowledge, your skills, and share your life with people and help them out. And that's kind of my satisfaction of being able to portray all this to my students and give them a real idea as to what it's all about.